Hello and welcome, learners. If you're new on my channel, my name is Trish, and I'm so excited to have you on this channel. On this channel, we learn, we have fun, and it's exciting. So I hope that you will subscribe and also turn on the notification bell for all future uploads. So for today, I wanted to take a little break away from the Photoshop series that I have been doing. Since we are just a week and a half to Father's Day, I wanted to create this simple but very clean Father's Day flyer so that those that are looking for free templates to use can have this, or you can use this as a guide to come up with your own unique Father's Day flyer. So without further ado, let's jump right into this tutorial. The first thing we want to do is to bring in our background elements. So I'm going to go to my working file and I'm going to change that so we can see. So the first thing I'm going to bring in is this image, and I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to double click to deselect, and then I'm going to go back to bring in the other image. I'm going to drop it in, and I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to double click to deselect. I'm going to move it below, and then I'm going to pick my eraser tool. I'm going to increase my brush, my eraser size, and I'm going to take it down just a little, something like that. And you want to make sure that your hardness is at 0 so you get that very smooth brush transition. So I'm just going to erase just gradually so you can see how it blends into the other image. So it's a very clean blend. And then I'm going to go back to my background layer and I'm going to rescale it just a little bit. I'm going to hold the other end too, going to double click. And then I'm going to use my eraser tool on that as well. And I'm going to gently erase so we don't see this line. Imagine. So we're going to click on our top image, go to image adjustment, brightness and contrast. Now, this is a very quick way of editing a photo without doing much to it, but yet still getting a very powerful effect. So I'm just going to move my slider on my contrast, and as you can see, it's really brightens up my image. I don't have to do so much, but it works. I'm going to take this up a little bit more, and I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to go back to my background image, and I'm going to go to image adjustment. And this time I'm going to choose hue, and I'm just going to play around with the color. I'm looking for a bluish color. So I'm just going to play around with this just a little bit more to get some depth. So we have something like this. So basically I've sort of merged both layers. And now what we want to do, we want to now begin to bring in our text. So I'm going to click on my text tool, and I'm just going to type in my first. I'm going to increase the font style. I'm going to just type in my first letter, which is spelling father. And I'm going to scale this. I'm going to highlight. And I'm actually going to change the font size to, that's about right. So I'm going to make a copy. And then I'm going to change this. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to increase the scale just a little. I'm going to double click. Now don't worry, we're going to change the color. So, and we're going to apply a different texture. So we are not so worried about the text color right now. It even looks good just with the two-tone, with the two colors. So I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to make a duplicate. I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to complete father. I'm going to leave a space and I'm going to add the S. I'm going to use my move tool and we are going to set this somewhere here. And then I'm going to make another copy. I'm going to set it up here. I'm going to move it up. Then I'm going to highlight this further, the F. I'm going to highlight the F and change the color to the deeper red. I'm going to click on the F and I'm going to right click and then convert to Smart Object. So now the text is not editable. I'm going to right click on my layer, the F, and I'm going to go to blending options. Now I'm going to add 3 styles, the bevel. I'm also going to add a stroke effect, and I'm also going to add a shadow. So with the stroke, with the bevel, you can see that the style is pillow embossed. My technique is smooth. My direction says up. And then I've kept my depth at 100%. Size and smooth are 0, but then you can still play with it to get the desired effect you want. I'm going to add a texture. The texture is not so visible, but I like the little bit of texture that it adds. And you can change it to make it more visible, but I like to keep it at 0. And then we're going to go to the drop shadow. So with the drop shadow, I can add another layer of the drop shadow, and I'm going to change the top one. I'm going to change the color to white. Then we are going to increase the spread just a little. And then I'm going to go to my black. I'm going to take the opacity all the way so we can see it pop a little bit more. And I'm looking at the opacity here. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to apply the same technique that I used for the F to this layer as well. So I'm going to choose my emboss and then my stroke, and then I'm going to add a drop shadow. So I'm just going to leave that one like this. I like the way it looks, and I'm just going to click OK. I'm going to go back to the F, and I almost want to take off the, yeah, I actually like the way this looks. All right, so I'm going to click OK. So now that we have the 2 elements in red, now I'm going to bring in another texture that I will apply to the other text. So I'm going to go to my working folder and I'm going to drag in and drop in my text. So I'm going to set it here and I'm going to move my image. I'm going to move that beneath my text so you can see it. So what I want to do is I want to infuse this image onto my text. So you want to make sure that the image you want to clip onto your text is always above. Before we clip, we want to make a duplicate so that we can put one in between the 2 layers beneath. So I'm going to I'm going to select my layer and I'm going to make a duplicate. I'm going to put the other one in between. So this image is going to be applied to this text, and then the other image will be applied to that text. So I'm going to turn off this layer so you can see the clipping. So I'm going to clip this image to the lower layer. Holding down my Alt, I'm going to clip. And as you can see, the text the image has been infused to my text. I'm going to repeat that for the other text as well. Holding down my Alt, I'm going to clip it. So you see that now our text has been transformed. Notice that I didn't have to convert this to Smart Object. And if I want to change my font, I can change it to whatever text I want. So just bear in mind that when you clip, you can still change your text. It's not distractive. I want to add a little bit more interest to our text. So I'm going to right click. So I'm going to add a drop shadow, and I'm going to double click on it. And I'm just going to decrease the opacity a little so it's not so strong. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click on the other image as well. Right click, go to blending options, and I'm going to do the same effect on that as well. I'm going to add an embossing so you have a very nice outline, even though it's not so visible, but it's still there. I'm going to click OK. So we are almost halfway done with our flyer. I'm going to type in the date. So I'm going to select my text tool, and I'm going to type in, since it's going to be the 21st, I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to change the font to Geometry 415 in case you want to know what font I used. So I'm going to rescale this. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to go to my character, and I'm going to decrease the spacing. I'm going to decrease the spacing between my text. I'm going to collapse that, and then I'm going to highlight my text, and I'm going to change the color to this red. I'm going to right click on my layer, and I'm going to add a shadow effect. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to move my text here, and I'm going to rescale it down just a little. I'm going to double click, deselect. Now I'm going to add the month. So I'm going to make a copy of my text, highlight, and then I'm just going to change it. And then I'm going to highlight. I want to change my font style, and I'm going to choose and then make it bold. Highlight, make it white, and then it's still not what I want. I want to change the spacing. So I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to reduce the scale and add a little bit of a twist to my text. I'm going to pull it up here. Now I know, you can't see it because it's a little bit white and it's being washed out. So a cool trick is to highlight your text, go to your shadow, and then what you want to do, you want to increase the spread on your shadow so you get this effect. And I'm going to click OK. So now we have our title or our theme, we have the dates, but yes, the theme is not complete. So we are going to click on our text tool, and we are going to add it's Father's Day service. So I'm going to complete the title, and we're going to move it down here. I'm going to highlight my font. Even though I like it, I want to change it to something else. And we are going to choose a typo slap in link demo. So in case you wanted to know what font I used. And I'm going to move that up here. Going to set it right there. I'm going to move to align. It's always good to align things because your eye, you don't want anybody reading your flyer to be confused. So you want to sort of guide their eye to what to read and when to read it. So I'm going to double click to deselect. I'm going to rescale just a little bit more. I'm going to double click, and it's looking good. We just have a few more things to add. So I'm going to go ahead and add the name of the church. So I'm going to decrease our font style, and I'm going to choose the text that I want. So for this text, I'm going to choose is Human ST 521, and I'm just going to type in the name of the church, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to rescale. We want to keep it small. I'm going to set it right there. Yeah, I know we can see it, so I'm going to double click to deselect, right click, then we are going to add a shadow. And always remember that you don't always have to use a different color when it comes to your font. You can just add a little bit of a shadow that will make the white text pop over a white background. So just bear that in mind. So now that we have this, we want to add the time. So I'm going to click back on my text tool, and I'm just going to type in my time. So I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to change this font to that, and I'm going to make that bold. And also we want to rescale this font. I'm going to double click to deselect, and I'm going to move that font right there. And then I'm going to add PM. So as you can see, I'm just being creative in the placement of text and other elements. And then I want to rescale this, make it smaller. I'm going to deselect, I'm going to move it and set it right there. So just with this little gesture, you see that the time is nicely placed, and you don't always have to do the conventional way of, showing the time. So you can be a little bit creative and still convey the message that you want your audience to know. So since this is going to be an online event, I need to add of course, the Zoom logo and the meeting ID. But before I do that, I always want to add live, so that people are aware that this is going to be a live video, a live virtual event on Zoom. And this is all preference. So you can choose to do that, or you can choose to totally ignore this. Trust me, I will not be offended. So I'm going to select my text tool, and I'm going to type in live. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to make that white. And I'm going to change the font for this one. We're going to look for a very basic, simple font, which is called Kandara. And I'm going to move that. I'm going to set that right there. I'm going to zoom in so we can see it well. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to change the style from bold. I'm going to do it regular. So it shows like what you see on like CNN. So the last thing that we want to bring in is our Zoom logo and our meeting ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull my logo in. Just give me a minute. I'm just going to. So since I didn't have the logo already in my working file, I just went ahead to pull it. Yeah, you can get this logo online and just use it. So the last thing is to add the meeting ID. So I'm just going to type in my meeting ID, And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a similar font that we have already used before. I'm going to go to, so I'm going to highlight the meeting ID, and I want to change that font style to light. And these are all very little gestures that you can do to just add a little bit of an interest to your design. And I'm going to deselect. I'm going to scale this down just a little bit more. I'm going to double click so we can see it. I'm going to move it down just a little. So I see that the font is not readable. So I'm going to take the style up a little, a notch up. So it's still readable, but it's not as bold as the meeting ID. So there is that distinction between the two. I'll show you one trick. So we want to select everything, and then we're going to click on the group, create new group, and now you want to click on Shift Control Alt E. And what Photoshop does is that it generates one file for you. So if I click off the visibility, I still have one image, but notice that now this image is just one file. It's not different layers put together. So if you want to add a little bit more richness to your final image, which I really don't think we have to in this case for this image, but just in case you want to, all you need to do, click on your layer, go to filter, you want to click on camera raw. And then in camera raw, you can now begin to bring up the richness and depth in the different colors. So you can see that the flyer is beginning to change in terms of the colors. And I can even take the contrast up just a little. And this is all preference. So whatever you want to do as your final image is just up to you. So I'm going to click OK because I like what I have. So if I do a before and after, you can see that there is a slightly, but yet still a dramatic change. If I click on this, this is the before. You see that the color tones in these are very muted. But then if you look at the after, you see that the color tones are more richer. Now, like I said, it is all preference based. You might like the more muted version. I like a little bit more pizzazz. This brings us to the end of another amazing fun tutorial. I really like how this flyer turned out. Oh, and just one little trick, one little tip that I forgot to mention to you guys. If you want to grow in terms of how you design, you need to look for at least 2 or 3 mentors that are doing creative things that you like and try and mimic what they have done, and that will surge you forward. So there goes my little secret. I think I've said it before in another flyer tutorial, but I like to repeat it so people know that there is really nothing new under the sun. Everything you do, basically, somebody has done it already. So you can learn from people, and that will help you to actually search forward. So with that said, I hope you found this tutorial very fun and exciting as always. Please like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for all future uploads. If you do recreate this flyer or a similar flyer from this tutorial, you can tag me on Instagram so that I can see what my students are doing. So have fun trying out this tutorial. See you on my next video. Bye-bye.